Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Today's video will be entitled How to Choose a Wife. And why this is a very important subject is because most marriages, of course, end in divorce. And people, just find it impossible to get along. And one of the reasons why they find it impossible to get along is because they make bad choices. And partly why they make bad choices is because they are delusional. Not they, we, all of us, we tend to, treat marriage, as though it is supposed to be, a relationship that exhibits romantic love all the time, and that's impossible. Okay, and so what we need to understand, first of all, before I get into the whole how you choose a wife, okay, let me just explain to you how real relationships work, and why it works the way that it does. Okay, right. So usually if you leave two people, male and woman, male and female, in close proximity to each other for long enough, they would begin to experience attraction to each other just because of proximity. Okay, long enough, that is. Okay, and they don't have other options. So meaning, if you take any male and any female and you put them together in a room, and they are to live there with each other, and there are no other options besides each other, eventually they would find the attraction towards each other, find the need to be together in an intimate way, and just by sheer chance, or because they've gotten used to being together, while they would naturally feel remorse or feel a sense of sadness if they had to part ways. Okay, and that would happen basically between almost any man and any woman, regardless of how they look, regardless of how they behave, regardless of anything. They might hate each other, but they would also love each other, basically, because nature, right? So, but how does it work to begin? Okay, so the first stages of attraction, is, butterflies, and I wish this guy would not shout like that. Ishada. Anyway, butterflies, and strong, drawing towards each other. What some people might say, feeling in love, etc. And that happens for a reason. Okay. We are designed to pair bond, and the reason why you feel such a strong attraction to the new person is because it is meant to cover up, to hide away that person's faults, and for that person to appear almost godly in your eyes, to help facilitate the coming together of the two people. Nature's way of facilitating the coming together of the two people, up to the point where they sleep together. Okay? Nature's further, what happens is that when people are natural, of course, natural people, not people that are messed up, the sleeping together further cements the emotional bond between the two, because sleeping together is a deeply intimate exercise. And so it turns into a long-term relationship. And once that is out of the way, meaning people have slept together now, the bond is being cemented, it has turned into a long-term relationship, naturally they experience a somewhat of a withdrawal from the romantic love, and they start loving each other in a more practical way. Now, what do I mean? Because romantic love is immensely impractical. Okay, men, as it were in the past and as it is now, were generally seen as providers. And in order for a man to function properly in the world, he cannot be distracted by women. Okay, he cannot, have a woman constantly on his mind. And similarly, a woman, in order for her to, as nature had it, give birth and focus her attention on her children and her home, she cannot be constantly focused on the guy. So the romantic love turns into practical love, okay? They have goals, they have ambitions together, and the main ambition obviously being survival. And so the romantic notions of love would get in the way of the survival demands on the love relationship. Okay, the love is there, but it's not, takes on a different kind of form and shape. And so people can't, so there's a sense of loss, in the sense that the romantic love is now, diminished. It's not gone, it's just diminished. And it may flare up at various times in life, and usually when people get out of their tasks, when people get away from the mundane tasks of everyday life that helps facilitate the family and keeping together, etc., etc. If they, for some reason, should go for a holiday, the couple goes for a holiday, or they go by themselves where they get to rediscover and refocus, reorientate their interest on each other, they would very easily rekindle those or similar feelings to what they have experienced in the beginning. Okay? Just more deep and more intimate, because they know each other more intimately by now, by that time. Okay? And that's really where the real romance is. Actually, it's in the mature relationship, not in the new one. Unfortunately, people very often don't get to experience a mature relationship because they don't stick it out to get there. Anyway, so then finally, when they grow old, for example, the children get big and they grow old, and then they become like soulmates. Okay, old couples, when they've lived a lifetime together, they, the level of attachment and bond is really, intense. And they really, at that point, they really can't actually live without each other. You often find when one of them when the man dies or the wife dies, shortly after the other one, goes. That does also happen because the human heart and emotions and all of that, as much as we discount it, in Western society, it is actually real. It can actually make you happy, it can actually make you healthy, but it can also make you sick. And it can literally kill you too, right? So those are the sort of the issues. So now this is now even before I get into, how to choose a good wife. And why I'm telling you this whole story is that when you choose a wife, like, to, love and to cherish, to hold and to keep until death do us part type of thing, you gotta now look at this whole picture that I just spent 8 minutes elaborating on, and ask yourself, do I want to do all this with this woman? Right? So, big decision, right? Pretty much. And some of the things that you have to ask yourself, okay, to begin with, step one is like, what do you want as a man? What do you want in a woman? And be sure about that, what that is, and stick to that list, okay? Because sometimes we tend to prioritize romantic notions over practical ones. And finally, when you are married to a woman, you are living with her in the same house, It is often the practical things in your life that might cause the marriage to be shaky. And less often is it the romantic notions, you know. And the romantic notions, are invariably things that, are up and down. Sometimes people are at each other's throats, for a long time. And then, when you find them again, they just totally crazy about each other and in love and so the romantic notions should not be your priority, basically, is what I'm saying. Your priority should be, you should ask yourself, can I live with this woman for a long time? Okay. Number one is that you ask yourself that question, and what do you want? So for example, a list. Let's do a list, okay? Hypothetical list. Okay, what do you want? Okay. Some men would say, look, I want a family. I want a wife who wants to have children with me, and I want to start a family, and I have a home and kids. Okay, fair enough. Right, so questions that should come up immediately is that, okay, you need to marry a woman that wants kids, first of all, right? Obviously. You need to marry a woman that wants to, if you want a woman that's going to stay at home and look out after the kids, you need to know that she wants to be a housewife. She wants to stay at home and look after the kids, of course. And can you afford to do that? Can you afford not to have to rely on her income, basically? If she has a job, that is. Whether she is prepared to take a break in her career to have those kids, for example. You need to ask questions like, does she carry herself, and this is a very important one, guys are jealous often, right? Does she carry herself in a way where she does not attract unnecessary attention to herself from other men? Okay, that's a very important one. Look, if you meet a woman and she's really beautiful and she's really attractive and she has all these men around her constantly and she's constantly flirting with them and they're constantly paying attention to her and providing emotional support to her and etc., right? But you're a guy, like most men, you want your woman to be your woman and your woman only, then you can't marry that woman, basically, because she's likely never going to be able to take the I'm available sign off, and she's not likely to be contented with the attention of one man, since she's used to getting attention from 100 different men and getting her needs, emotional and possibly even sexual needs, met by different men throughout her life. She's not a woman that can settle down, basically, ever. So probably just scratch her off the list, no matter how much you like her. Okay. A woman that is more likely to settle down is a woman that has lived her life for marriage. What do I mean by that? I mean, she does not look for male attention constantly. She does not foster relationships with a whole bunch of men. Maybe she has one or two male friends that are really just male friends. I mean, I'm not trying to say that you need to all have my very conservative values, but more or less, you gotta kind of look at the underlying things, because conservative values do work when it comes to marriage, because marriage is actually part of the conservative value subset. It just is. There's no way around it. So when you because otherwise don't get married, right? There's no need to get married in that case. Just don't get married and be free and do whatever you want. So anyway, so you gotta look at the woman's mentality and attitude and see how she carries herself around men. If she's flirtatious, if she's easily flattered, if she's easily taken in by flattery, and she seems too willing to go with men and be with men just because she craves the attention, that's not a woman you marry, right? Don't marry that woman, basically. I was going to say something kind of very bad. I was going to say that's not a woman you marry, but that's a woman you... But I also don't encourage that type of thing. So anyway, so check that out, because the last thing you want is a wife who, when you turn your back, or when you're away, or when you're traveling, or when whatever, that she's going to justify being with and sleeping with other men, and she will never tell you. Of course she'll never tell you, right? Because she wouldn't want to break up the comfort that she experiences from being married to you. At the same time, she wants her bread buttered on both sides. The last thing you want is that, okay? So you get a woman who is not insecure that way, who's comfortable in her own skin, who's happy to be alone, okay? Or who can manage being by herself. So, and you do get women like that. You get women who are for years, they're not dating, they don't have boyfriends really, they just by themselves, and they're happy to be by themselves. That's a chaste woman, okay? Now, when I say chaste, I don't necessarily mean she's a virgin, because I know that in Western societies, that's kind of hard to find, and that's the other thing. You don't have to marry a woman, an English-speaking woman. You don't have to marry a woman from a Western society. You can marry a Russian woman, a Japanese woman. Japanese women, I'm told, are really, feminine. And you could marry an Arab or a woman from Asia, Korean or whatever, who have slightly more conservative values. You can just bypass all the Western women, no problem, no need actually. So you don't have to, because what I'm describing here, I think more and more you're just not gonna find it in the West, basically. You can, consider a Muslim woman, like, consider converting to Islam. A Muslim woman isn't going to marry you if you don't convert to Islam. And if you like it, marry a Muslim woman, because conservative values are embedded in Islam, and Muslim women are taught, traditional Muslim women that is, are taught since kids, to be good wives and obedient wives even to their husbands and so on. And so it's just easier. I'm a Muslim, I have Muslim wives, and it's easier, it's better, basically, and it's just, when you have a common core set, a common value system, if you're a Christian, for example, and you grow up with conservative Christian values and you marry a good Christian woman, there's so much that your religion and your value system has provided for you, that you can take so much for granted, and you don't have to navigate and negotiate on every point in your marriage. There's so many things you can just assume, and assumptions are good in that regard, okay? Because, like I say, marriage is not the goal of life. Marriage is a important part of your life, but life is not about marriage. And so when you do get married, you kind of need to just get it out of the way. I'm sorry to put it that way. You kind of need to settle down as fast as you can within your marriage and live your lives, basically, and not have to worry about each other and your marriage constantly. The best marriages are the marriages where people are not worried about their marriage, because they're just comfortable with each other, and they don't have to, be concerned about what their partners are doing, because they trust them, and they just basically live their lives, and they live their lives together, and that's what makes them married. They stick to the rules, basically, and the boundaries that they were raised with and that they agree on. And so that's why it does help to marry within your religious community, because you have common values, and common values are important. Okay, when you don't have common values and you come from very diverse backgrounds, it's a good thing, because it's a good place actually to learn and respect other cultures and values, etc. But it's also something that requires a very high level of maturity and emotional intelligence, and that's not always easy, for people, because there's certain emotional assumptions that are made. There are certain logical assumptions that are made, but that also spark an emotional reaction in people. And so there's a lot of emotional misunderstanding in diverse couples that come from different value systems. And so the misunderstandings are often completely irrational, because it triggers an emotional response in your partner, especially a woman, that, you as a man may not even be able to understand, because you don't understand the emotional history and how your wife's emotional triggers work in relation to your behavior, which is now going to be obviously very different to what she's used to. So often there's just too much baggage, basically, and it's just sometimes impossible to navigate, unfortunately, across cultures and religions and so on. So that does happen, and it can work if you have a support structure, meaning you have people around you who can advise both of you when you have a fallout, and who can try to advise you in favor of trying to keep you together. But unfortunately, a lot of times the support structure would advise you, both of you, in favor of splitting you up, and will tell you the best thing is to leave each other, kind of thing. So that's why I kind of think that you should just, if you want a marriage that's easy, that's relatively trouble-free, and that's going to help create a stable life for you, so that you can focus on your success and your prosperity, especially as a man, because your success, your family relies on your success and your income and your abilities, then you should probably just marry, a good wife, a homely wife, a woman that will be loyal and committed to you, and who will follow your lead, and who will respect the propriety you have over her as a man, not make you jealous, and take care of your sentiments over her, just like you should, take care of hers. And in turn, those are usually the smart women, because she knows that, look, your loyalty and commitment to her helps facilitate the type of life that she wants. So those type of women are usually women that want to be homemakers and mothers and so on. And so she relies on your income and your ability to have that life, because that's the life she wants. And she can't have that life without your income and your maintaining her and your supporting her. So you become a support structure for her, but in turn she becomes a support structure for you. So that is kind of the interdependent model of marriage, which is the historical model of marriage, and which is the one that has been tried and tested and worked all these years, for thousands of years. But it's not by far the only way you can get married. You can be married to a woman that's independent, that has her own money, that has her own job, and that helps, that both of you, your incomes support, your household and your family. And that's increasingly more the case in the modern era, because people are just poorer and less contented in our time. They want more. They think a lot of what they want is actually what they need, basically. And so they want more, but what they want, they think is they need. So basically they need more. And so they need two incomes a lot of the time to support our household. And then in cases where, and then there's a lot of cases where people are just poor, like they genuinely just need the two incomes to support the household. And so that's also a model, and that works as long as, if you're going to marry an independent woman, as long as she understands that her independence doesn't make you disposable. Because unfortunately with a lot of independent women, they have a very, very short fuse and are not able to tolerate a whole lot in a man's faults, basically, because they feel they don't have to, basically. Because they're like, I don't really need this man because he's not providing for me. Which is not true, actually, because, men are a lot more than the paycheck, Men also provide emotional support for the woman. Men also provide, keep those women chaste in a sense that they don't have to go and look for emotional and physical and sex, basically, elsewhere, which creates instability in a woman's life. So for as long as she can refer to that man, her husband, for that emotional and physical support, she is actually a happier and more stable woman. And also the presence of the man keeps away, in decent societies that is, keeps away the predator males from preying on that woman and trying to exploit her and use her money and etc. And sleep with her and dump her and move on and type of thing. So yes, having a man around is a lot more than the paycheck that he provides. Unfortunately, a lot of women in our time, are still, psychologically in the mode where, the historical mode where it is seen as proper for a man to provide. And so when they are providing for themselves and they are independent, they don't really see their men or their husbands as real men, because he's not doing the manly thing, really. And they see that deep in their psyche, that's still how they see it or how they feel about it. And so they lose respect for their husbands, and they treat their husbands like garbage, and they expect their husbands to tolerate all their bullshit because he's not really providing. And because, so her independence is kind of like a double-edged sword. Her independence is something she insists on the one hand. On the other hand, she is not respectful of her husband because of her independence, yet she wants to be independent. So that's always been the oxymoron of, regarding women, is wanting everything, basically, and not being able to see reason in relation to wanting everything, not being able to accept that she can't have everything, basically. So you get this type of thing, the battle, the internal battle that the independent woman has is basically between independence, matriarchy, autonomy, and patriarchy. Because deep down in a psyche, in a reptilian brain, there's the thousands of years of genetic programming, where as a woman, she wants to be protected by a man, she wants to feel safe, she wants to be looked after, she wants to be provided for, and that is really sexy, on the one hand. So that's the thousands of years of genetic coding. And then on the other hand, there's this new thing that has been installed in her frontal cortex, where she believes in her independence and her freedom. And then yet her independence and her freedom is a source of great bitterness for her, because she has never had a man, or could never have a man, who looks after her and protects her and provides for her, because, well, she's an independent woman. So she fights, the independent woman has this constant battle between nature and the new ideas that have just come about very recently, of independence and feminism and matriarchy and autonomy, because they really don't work together, A woman's autonomy and her financial independence is often not congruent with her instincts as a woman, and so she's always conflicted, basically. The independent woman, you will notice, is always conflicted between these two very different value systems. One that's embedded deep within her thousands of years of genetic program, and one that's very newly installed, the feminist ideology. And so last but not least, to end off very abruptly, if you really want to be happily married, don't marry a feminist. Thank you.